Shalom Habarim. And greetings and welcome, friends, guests, visitors, family members, new arrivals. Welcome. Now, in this presentation, we're going to be talking about the detailed, actual, real-time working mechanisms of how the universe and life and everything in it perfectly progresses cyclically and systematically, and how we can observe ourselves, right? Actually observe ourselves, and how the cyclical nature of life basically makes us think, feel, even process and exist, and also how this has an actual real-time, intelligently, clearly, magically invisible and observationally accessible and readily apparent working mechanism. So what I'm talking about here is, first of all, the fact that life is cyclical, and there are different cycles of life wherein it is the time for different things. And as these go on, this has an immediate systematic an effect on our mood, psychic state, and so on, and all of how we feel, think, how we view the world, how we think about our life, the universe, and everything. And through having an observer perspective, like a very neutral and a very clear and a very truthful observational perspective, watching ourselves, watching the cycles of life, watching how we feel. Why do I feel like this? Why do I think this right now? Why is this scenario going through my mind right now? Right? And then paying attention to the life cycles that you're in, you begin to see exactly how the universe works, and how all of life, and even this human divine life experience, and our situation, our outlook on life, what we're thinking about, how we're thinking it's going to be, what we're thinking, like processing, things, goals, thinking about doing certain things, and then what will be the result of. And even our expectation of how life will be and so on is completely subject to the systematic and actually perfect order of how life is cyclical. Now, I'm going to specifically get into the details of the most interesting and one of the most recent revelations that I have been making and getting is that, see, to comprehend that life is cyclical and to then live wisely and prudently is good. Yet it goes even further in that we can actually, we can actually clearly see through what's going on in the universe and know it's almost like by observing ourselves, right? Why am I thinking this scenario now? And then 3 hours later, I'm thinking, okay, this is what will happen if I do this, right? Or this could happen. You have this intuitive sort of a sense of like when you're calculating out your actions in everyday life, right? Oftentimes we're thinking about making decisions, right? Whether in business, personal, health areas of life. Basically, you're thinking about something and you're calculating the outcome. What's interesting is that if you pay very close attention, you observe yourself very neutrally and intelligently, while also observing the life cycles that you're in, and even the life cycles that are existing and that are going on right now at this moment. So you, the viewer, at any point in time when you see this video, check what life cycles you are in right now, and then clearly get an overview of even the daily periods, right? The short and the long lunar units that you're in, annual life cycle period, simple overall period of human life, and so on and so forth. And then it's as if you have a structural overview of how life is systematically existing right now. With this structural technical overview, and the data from this is from a certain book called Self-Mastery and Fate with the Cycles of Life, right? So it's almost like looking at a clock or a watch that shows you exactly, you can see the working mechanisms of life in the universe as it is right now. And it also explains to you yourself, because listen, we exist in this heavens and earth plane, right? In this, divine human experience here, heavens and earth plane, earth human life activity, right? We exist in this perfectly programmed, divinely, geometrically progressing, perfect system that is also intelligible and apparently visible to us to certain degrees and increasingly through the knowledge of how life is cyclical, and by monitoring the daily periods of the cycles of life and simply being real, true seers or magi's who can see through it all as much as possible, right? So what happens is then, if you go and you take some forms of meditation talk about going into an observer mode, observing yourself and your thoughts and so on. So kind of almost as if you're going to a higher point in your existence where you're looking at things from above and more neutrally. You're going into an observer mode of yourself, your thoughts, ideas, feelings, all the different vibes, and you're very neutrally, intelligently observing yourself actually. And then what you begin to see is that any thoughts that go through your mind, right? Anything that you're thinking at any given point in time, there is a logical explanation for why that is the case. And comprehending this is one thing. And then this also enables you to make the right decisions later. So what I'm talking about is being able to observe yourself and your so-called psychic state and your thoughts, feelings, emotions, what goes through your mind, right, during the day, in everyday life, right? And actually being able to clearly comprehend and see and verifiably, truthfully see, veritably, right, why that is even the case. Now, this may sound simplified to some, and they may think, okay, why are you just observing things? Things are as they are. Why do you have to observe them to understand why they are? Because, see, it's like someone studying a working mechanism and observing it exactly and figuring out exactly how it works, and then being able to work with it and even have it work for you in a very good way, for the highest good, right? So that's what you have to do. You have to observe technically, exactly, and truthfully and magically observe life, yourself, and keep a systematic overview of the life cycles that you're in, because this is as if it's a map or a total clear insight into the working mechanisms of how everything works as it goes on and on and on. And also resting at certain times, like on the high holy days, the Sabbaths, right? And so on. Look, you've got something where, so it's as if we can read out, it's as if we can spy by observing ourselves. For example, I'm going to give you a real life scenario of this so you can understand how this works. So the other day I was thinking about something that had to be coordinated, right? Something to do with finances and transactions. And I was thinking, okay, should I do this now this way? And then I had this feeling that if I do this now this way, here's what could happen. And so I thought, okay, wait a minute. I know why I'm feeling and thinking this way, why I'm calculating this way, why I'm essentially plotting a scenario and then calculating the reaction thereto. All of that is also explained by the life cycles that you're in at the very moment. So what I'm saying is I was thinking about something, and then what happened was I got the feeling that if I do this, this is going to happen. And I thought, okay, does that really make sense? How can I know that my, like a technical future prognosis, right? Almost like my logically calculated expectation of what's going to happen. How do I know that I'm right with this? Maybe it's presumptuous or something. How do we know that what we're thinking is right and that we can actually see what will happen In other words, we can see the future. It was like we can see the future potential results and scenario as a result of actions that we're calculating that we could take. So it's as if I was thinking about doing something, and then I got this idea that if I do this, this will happen. And then I checked and I looked, and I realized that my assumption and my prognosis, right, almost as if we could foresee the future, the potential future even, as a result of this action that we can take or not take, I could see that. And I checked, and wisdom verified that what I was thinking what would happen as a result of if I did this at this time, I was correct. That's what would have happened, because I could see the life cycles I'm in, or that I was in at that time, and I knew how the universe is programmed and pitched and systematically working like at that time. So I knew that, okay, if I do this, this will be the results, right? But see, what's actually going on is that you're sort of scanning. So think about this. If you could predict the actions or the reactions, even by other humanoids or humans, based on the actions that you take, right? If you could foresee the results of, you're thinking about, the wisest course of action in life, and then what happens is, so you're thinking, okay, should I do this? And then you get the feeling, you're thinking, okay, this is what will happen if I do this. And then you check, and wisdom verifies to you that that's correct. You were just able to actually completely foresee the potential future accurately. This enables you to then make the wisest decisions that will permanently result in the best possible future scenario. That's an extreme advantage, tactical advantage in life, okay? Who can do this? Even the master strategists and so on. How many of you can actually clearly foresee what will happen? In other words, you can foresee the potential future. Like, we can foresee the future. We know what will happen as a result of an action that we take. We know what the reaction will be. And before it even becomes thus, we can already foresee it, calculate it out, and then in addition to that, and most importantly, make the wisest decision, leading to the best possible results in all of life. Think about this. This is true. Now, how do you read the future in the here and now? So the way that this works is, and this is important to comprehend this and to communicate this, because if we were to do this more often, we would be much, much safer and more prosperous in life. Anyone could do this. So like I said, the scenario is this. The example is, I could explain it in detail. I guess I could explain it in detail simply so that it will be comprehensible by, highest amount of humans in that sense. I was thinking about making a financial move the other day. And then I got the feeling, well, if I do this now, here's what could happen. I had like a hunch or a pre-prognosis. And then I checked and I realized what I was thinking what would happen as a result of if I did this, right? I was correct with that. And the way that I knew that I correctly almost like previewed the potential future reality of something that I was thinking about doing was because I used wisdom to verify, and I realized that, yes, that is, so the way that you're thinking, even the expectation, what you feel motivated, inclined to actually do right now, the way you feel right now, the way you think right now, what's on your mind, how you're thinking about continuing your life, making decisions, anything. It all, first of all, has to do with the life cycles that you're in right now. More specifically, even the daily periods of the cycles of life. And remember, this changes every 3 hours, 25 minutes, every 3.5 days, every 52 days, and every 7 years, right? And then technically, all of this happens within the simple overall period of human life from 0 to about 144 years, and so on, okay? So now what happens is that we have to actually clearly comprehend and look at the fact and the reality of the facts of the matter that everything that goes on in life, how we feel, how we look at it, how we even look at ourselves, how we judge ourselves, others, the decisions we feel inclined to make, everything that goes on in our physical and even perhaps metaphysical state of existence is all subject to a certain perfect system whereinto we have certain insight. And that's the cycles of life. And it's changeable, okay? It changes, like I said, every 3 hours, the short lunar unit that leads to the high or low tides, right? Sequentially. Then the daily period of the cycles of life of 3 hours and 25 minutes. It changes every 3 hours, 25 minutes, right? Then the 3.5 day long lunar unit changes every 3.5 days, right? And the annual life cycle period, every 52 days it changes, right? Okay. And then the simple overall period of human life that has cycles of 7 leading up to 144 years, right? So what this is about is that you can actually, this sounds strange, yet it's correct. You can foresee in the here and now, if you clearly have a comprehension of and you monitor the life cycles you're in and you know what life cycles you're in, this explains to you why everything is how it is right now. How you feel, what you're thinking, what your expectation is, the vibes, what's going on within us, what we think about, what we think will happen if we do this, everything, right? This complete and total existential divine human state of existence, earth human life activity, this right here, right? Everything that's happening right now is happening according to a system. And seeing this, and then if we take a observational sort of a perspective, look at ourselves for a minute from a distance, with like from a higher point within where, okay, wait a minute, like almost going into a spectator mode within ourselves, we then can see exactly how and why and whereby it all is how it is right now with us, what we're thinking about. And now what happens is, what's interesting, this goes into the area of now being able to predict the potential actions, to actually being able to predict. So we have the ability to predict, to actually see ahead of time what another person, for example, or like along the lines of human interactions, we can already foresee what will happen or what the reaction or the response of another humanoid or an animal, technically, would be based on our own actions. So as a general rule, it's as if we can foresee the future and make it a certain way, and also foresee the potential future state and what will happen based on what we make happen. And we can see this in advance. Okay, so now what happens is that, look, let's say in business, I'm thinking about making a decision, right? It has to do with other people. Okay, whatever it is, whatever legitimate things we're busy with. So I'm thinking about doing this, and as I'm thinking about doing this, I realize, wait, I get this hunch that if I do this, this is what will happen. And then I think, okay, am I correct with that? Am I being, optimistic enough here? And then I check, and I realize, wait, what you thought would happen, what you were thinking about doing, and what you thought would happen at that moment is exactly what will and would actually happen right now in this moment, in this time, within this 3 hours, 25 minutes, right? And then, as everything progresses and the life cycles progress that you are in, it's as if you're progressing perfectly, moving forward along this line that is like life. It's eternal, and it's made up of cycles, and you're moving through different cycles. Always about 9 or 10 of them that, like I said, change every 3 hours, 25 minutes, etc., right? So then what's happening is you're actually able to clearly see that, okay, what I was thinking and what I was thinking would even happen based on what I was thinking about making happen, I was correct with that. Now, why can we actually, one might ask, how can you actually claim, honestly, reporting, right? Honestly report that you can A, foresee the future, and B, predict the reaction to an action you take, right? even by other humans, right? And even determine what will happen to a certain degree, okay? It's because of understanding the system whereby it all works and also rests. So, look, there have been enough times when I had a friend tell me something. His friend told me something. I said, okay, here's what to do. Do this at this and this and that time, okay? And that should work. And sure enough, this person went out and did what I said, or I had recommended him to do. And a couple days later, we were talking, and I asked him, so what happened with that? And he said, yeah, it was fine. I knew that beforehand because I knew and I know how life is systematically organized, and how the way that it's systematically organized makes things a certain way at certain times. And even by looking at linear time, so-called, we can already foresee what will happen and what's potentially possible at different times. So this is how this works. So now the thing is, I just had a glimpse, a real interesting vision of absolute new territory of knowledge and wisdom and insight into how life really works cyclically, and how we can even, we can actually read and see everything and know what the future, even possible future scenarios look like. Because, yeah, any person could technically do this. If I told you, look, if you buy a house on this island, well, then you're going to have a house on this island probably, you know? So is that predicting the future? Rather, though, what if I told you that I can see ahead? Well, see, moreover, more than being able to see ahead of what will happen, I can see right now why everything is happening right now, how it is. And by comprehending that, you then also know that ahead of time, and so on, because of the, okay, let's imagine linear time. So if I know why everything is how it is right now, and in an hour I do too, and in 3 hours I do too, and in 6, and etc., right? Because of being able to see through it all to a certain degree. So therefore what happens is this. We can accurately predict future scenarios having to do with anything within this divine human existence, right? So if I already know the future, more than just knowing the future, actually being able to shape it and make it a certain way, and hopefully the wisest, the most legitimate and divinely ordained way, that's how it's supposed to be done. And that works, it works. Now there is, in addition to what I'm describing, is an ongoing and a permanent divine, sort of a divine aid and improvement that's going on too. Divine guidance is always there, right? Yet, it is important because the more wisdom you have, the better you can make everything for the highest good even, right? Within this existence, okay? So the thing is, okay, all right. So look, it's almost like this. A magi or a seer, right? He's sitting there at his desk, right? He's thinking, I got to transfer like so and so much money to this person, right? At the beginning of the month, yeah? Or whatever. Well, I guess the end of the month, but yeah. And okay, I get this feeling that if I do this now, this person might do this instead. Or like this. How do I know that my hunch, my intuition, my calculation of the things, or what's going to be, my expectation of how it's actually going to be in life? Well, I go through life, right? I'm making decisions. We're making decisions, right? Hopefully legitimate, wise ones as we go, right? You're going through life, right? And now, we have to have this wise, additional observer perspective with us, like a magical mode of being where we also, while we're going through all this good life, right? We also observe ourselves in everything so that we can neutrally see, additionally, and constantly see exactly what's going on and comprehend it all as much as possible, because then every step of the way, the decisions we make, they're just super good ones. They're really good ones. And part of that has to do with patience and not being hasty either in the everyday interactions and so on. Being a little more patient, and then watching, and then seeing, I see, this is what will happen if I do this. So wait a minute, wait a couple seconds or a minute or two, and then reflect and await divine additional insight and actual, it's as if that the Creator, as you go through life, is also looking, like He's looking to you and through you, and you're seeing with Him. It's like, it's as if, because there's a thing, God will see to it. It's as if God is seeing and showing you, and you're seeing with Him, or by His help, you're seeing additionally how it all is and what the wisest way to go is. And if you do this in everyday life, you're just super, super, mega, very good to go, and things are mega good all the time. Think about this. So imagine having the ability to even see through it all and what is going on, and know what will go on, and even determine what goes on. That's a serious thing. How many people can actually do that? Even the most, shall we say, temporarily, and based on divine authority and responsibility, quote unquote, powerful human beings on earth probably have some abilities in this regard, in this area of human, activity. In other words, like even the master strategists of this world, can you actually accurately predict the future and make it a certain way with, like, say, about maximum accuracy? I do this all the time. I realize I do this all day. I don't even notice it anymore because I do this all the time. It's become like a natural habit where, okay, not a challenge, yet the suggestion for additional comprehension of and realization of this is, somebody could ask me a question, right? Or basically somebody could come to me and ask for, like, guidance in life, right? And I could tell them after a while, of course, I'd have to see what their birth date is. I'd have to know, what life cycles they are in, because it's nothing other than if you came to me and asked me, we live in a place where the sun rises in the east and sets in the west every day. And somebody comes to you and says, hey, where will the sun rise tomorrow? In the east, right? It's like, it's no different than asking a farmer about how to farm. It's just the same thing. And all human beings should know this, how life cyclically is, because then you can really live a very good life. The problem is the opposite of wisdom, and that isn't even a problem. It just has to do with how there's a time and a place for everything on earth and under heaven, and also there are varying degrees of maturity, right? So like a tree that just was planted isn't bearing fruit yet. It will in the future, and then it will be bearing fruit. So it's all in divine good timing, right, in life. Yet the thing is that, think about this, I can see ahead of time, not even ahead of time, I can see right now. It's like being able to see right now and know, okay, I know what time it is, I know what cycles of life I'm in right now. I know exactly for a fact how it all is right now, what is positive, what is negative in all aspects, what will happen if, not even that, what will happen if, right? And like, we can see why we are, what it is, how it is right now. We can see that. We can know why it's that. And we know what the response, so we know why anything is happening, how it is right now, and what will happen as a result of whatever we make happen right now, and generally divided into positive and negative categories. And this even includes being able to predict human behavior, and interactions, because language is still based on a lot of things that are like positive and negative, yes, no, right? Positive, negative, right? Male, female, etc. All this stuff. So now, if I already know, first of all, I know why this is how it is, and what I should and what I shouldn't. And then I know that if I do this, this will happen. So while all this is going on, we do not know. Look, okay. If you look at the earth and the universe, the life environment, the reality, right? The heavens, the earth plane, yourself, all this, everything you're seeing, everything that's going on here that you're even sensing, looking at, like every detail of this state that creation is in right now, and on, right? It is never the same. It always progresses, and it's always a little bit different. For example, if you were to have asked me today at 12 o'clock, would I be hiking here today at this time? In other words, you don't know. Even with all the wisdom you can have, you do not, because of how everything, so let's look at the idea of linear time and life cyclically progressing. Even just the fact that, like, you stand over here, the view is like this. You look at this, it's different. So there's always a constant change where things are never the same, but they always are, almost as if creation is continuously, increasingly, always changing, right? In a good way. So what I'm saying is, if this were a movie, you don't know the exact, like all the data and all the exact details of how it all will look and be ahead of time. So for example, you do not know the exact images that you will see in a minute, or based on where you look, right? Even at the world, right? Yet, okay, if there was a code running all of this, the code is constantly changing. It's always, it's actually perfectly increasing all the time. And it's always different. There's never the same set of numbers. That's like, if this was generated by code, so it's continuously changing. It's never at the same number. The number, it's like the number, or if there was a mathematical formula or a set of numbers that indicates the ultimate state that the universe and everything is in right now, this number would constantly be changing. It would always be evolving, okay? Sort of like the number 3.14, where it just never ends. It goes on and on. So it's like an operating system that is constantly operating. And it's never, this whole thing is never in the same state. It's never like on a movie screen where somebody presses pause and it stops. No, the waterfall is running, sun is shining, right? Even if I stop, still there's this life force and this positive, progressive existence universally going on, right? On all levels. So, but see, where it becomes interesting is that this is constantly going into and changing in a way that we do not actually know. Yet, we know, and we can know the parameters of what things will be in, even with the included and the permanent unknown, the great unknown divine surprise programming and factor of this existence. So what I'm saying is that it's like having, how do I explain this? Okay. If it was going to the theater, it would be like, you don't know exactly what you're going to see on the screen, but you do know what it will generally be like and what the parameters of it will be, what it will be like and what it won't be like. So, okay, almost like ordering a drink, and you know what the ingredients are and how and what the ingredients will be, but you don't know just how good it will taste. It's almost like that. So it's as if everything is revealed to us, while at the same time, so it's like we can foresee, how do I put this into language? We can completely foresee. It's as if we know everything increasingly, right? To very high degrees, even right now, comprehending it all, potentially, based on how much we focus, right? And magically, wisely observe everything that's going on. So, and it's as if while we increasingly know everything, we also know of the great unknown divine surprise mechanism. So it's as if life was a movie, it's a movie that will just be increasingly, it just gets better and better, and that just goes on forever like that. Increasingly good, right? Yet, and you can know, all right, what it'll be like, what this movie is about, what generally you'll know what will happen, and what time it will be, what scene, what this, what that, right? But still, it's as if you know everything, and you also know of the great unknown. So, how can I put this? How can I put this comprehensively? Okay. You know it's going to be a beautiful day. The weather is going to be very good, and the views will be good. Yet the views are actually, they turn out to be much better than you expected. That's sort of how this works. While you knew, so okay, if it was like a picture, you have a systematically progressing pattern that's like even two-dimensionally on paper, it could be written and visible, or like a pattern or something. And you know exactly how this pattern is going to progress systematically, even forever, basically. Yet, you don't know just exactly how exactly it will manifest. You know what? So, how do we explain this? Like, okay, I guess one of the ways to say this is that we can. So starting right now, we can see exactly why and how everything is how it is, even within ourselves and others and everything. In addition to that, we can do that constantly in a linearly progressing way. So what this equates is that in any given point in time, I can A, comprehend everything there is to comprehend, see through it all, right, to the highest degree, and then, because of this, also accurately predict the reactions to potential actions that I would take. So there you're seeing all the possibilities of the variable and potential future at any given point in time ongoingly. And while that is happening though, so right here, right now, you're constantly able to accurately foresee the future, all the potential future scenarios in life, because you know how it works and you know what is possible at certain times and what's not possible. You know what things are programmed for at certain times and what they're not programmed for at certain times. And these times are the different, even linear time frames and windows and what do you call that? Windows and periods of time that are even linearly identifiable, even starting right now, where you have, like I said earlier, 3 hours, 25 minutes, 3.5 days, 52 days, 7 years, 144 years. These are these constantly changing time frames of the life cycles. Okay. In that case, what happens is, so it's as if, it's as if at any given point in time, based on your own effort, if you look at the cycles of life you're in, it explains why everything is how it is and how it will be. Let's see, it's one thing to be able to foresee the future, right? Because if you said to me, okay, tell me what the future holds, that doesn't really make sense, because quote unquote, we don't know what the future holds, right? But if you throw a basketball at a wall, right, it's going to bounce back. That's the most probable thing that's going to happen at that moment. You're standing in front of a brick wall and you throw a basketball at a brick wall, like 5 feet in front of you. Bomb. It's probably going to bounce back off the wall, right? So it could be hit by a laser beam and pop. That's possible. but it's not likely. So it's sort of how this works in that because of life's systematical and cyclical organizational nature, basically as long as you know what time it is, as long as you know what time it is, what day it is, in reality, right, according to a certain ongoing linear and orderly system that was put in place by the Creator, we know, and we can know how it is, how it will be, and make it a certain way, okay? Now I ask myself this. What if, for some reason, no, but I've tested it and it's accurate. So it's like you have a book filled with information, right? It presents a certain system to you. You go and you test this system in the field and it works. Then there's something right there. It's correct. See, what I'm asking myself is, and I've asked this before, one of the things within, for example, with the Hebrew calendar is we always have to accurately actually even be able to know for a certainty when certain, for example, high holy days are. And that is then identifiable by the moon, right? And things like that. So because, look, what if for some reason, over the past 7,515 years approximately, or even in recent history, what if for some reason, right, like if we're using a Gregorian calendar right now and we're looking at it and saying, okay, today is Friday afternoon, right? And, it really is Friday. It's not Thursday. It's not Saturday yet. But see, what if there was an inaccurate rendering of the actual time and date and everything that we're in with the Gregorian calendar? What I'm saying is, you have to be able to actually test the substance of the universe. I'm talking about testing the substance, almost like somebody brings a batch of grape juice and says this is 100% pure grape juice, all right? And then you have this person from a testing laboratory that goes and takes like a beaker, whatever, and takes out like a couple drops, puts it under the microscope, does whatever testing, and that's 100% grape juice right there. You have to be able to do this because even with the highest amounts of wisdom, right? You got to be able to verify and continuously absolutely verify that you are in fact correct with your calculations, with your observations, right? Almost like a navigator who has a map, but he's always got to check and identify his actual real-time position, the real accurate coordinates, right? Now, there are ways of doing this. For example, the following scenario, and I've observed this time and time again, sometimes it has been great and sometimes been even terrible to see the truth of this. And it's a good thing though, is that because of the different life cycles, these different life cycles have a different effect on human activity. So in other words, there's positive and negative periods, 3 hours in length, 3.5 days in length, that constantly alternate. Those are the lunar units, both short of 3 hours and long of 3.5 days, that constantly alternate between negative and positive. And the combination of the two at any given point in time gives you a certain energetic state that the universe and the earth and the world and human life activity is sort of in right now. So there basically are 3 hours time frames that constantly go on and constantly change, where things could be in a state of being double positive, or like even, I guess if you collapse it, positive, neutral, or negative. Now this has an effect on what human beings do, how they feel, everything. What you'll notice in the negative units, so when I'm walking around, right, in the real world, okay, I have a map of the day. I know what life cycles are at what times. I know when there's a high tide and a low tide. I know when it's a positive and a negative lunar unit. So I'm walking around, right? And during a double negative, when there's an energy state that the universe is in where it's double negative, it's resting, like resting, not like up and running, resting. You see, things are calm. You also hear, you'll hear cries at that time. families walking around with, infants. The infants are having a temper tantrum at this time. And I look at my watch and I see, like, you're walking across the marketplace and there's a family there and their infants are just like screaming, having a temper tantrum. You look at your watch, you realize it's a negative lunar unit right now. Things are in a crash mode. A day later, you're walking around, everybody's happy. It's like the orchestra is playing the most beautiful music right now. Well, it's because it's a positive unit. People are calm, happy. It's like the entire complete and total vibrational state of Earth, human, and life activity in the universe and the world around us and everything, right, is continuously changing, and it's explained to us. And it is so absolutely accurate that at times it's terrible when you see. Because now what happens is, it's like with great knowledge and great power comes great responsibility because of the potential positive or negative consequences of wielding and operating and living with this much power, right? So what I'm saying is that you see the truth clearly. You know that if you do this, this is a result. If you do that, that's a result. So you have to be accountable to yourself and to God, so to say. Because look, if I know that I can save the entire world at this time of the day, and if I am lazy, you could not excuse yourself from like forfeiting some divine duty like that. What I'm saying is that it's like if you know things that can lead to either good or bad things, whether with yourself, everybody else, the whole world, potentially, you got to force yourself to do the right things and to be responsible. And you have to literally force yourself to have self-discipline and prudence and responsibly wield this amount of power by the wisdom you have in your life. Because if you don't, it's like there's no... It's like you cannot fool yourself. You cannot be foolish. The only problem there is in the world, in the universe, is like what is like foolishness. What could be described as foolishness on any level, particularly related to human existence and behavior. The proper thing is wisdom, okay? So the problem is, like, look, as a potential master, right? You're walking around, right? You're going through life. You know exactly, what has to happen. You know exactly when it can happen. You better make it happen, because if you don't, see, that's the thing about determining your destiny too. Like, for example, if there's some necessity in life, or there's something good that has to be accomplished, and I can do that thing, and I know when I have to do it, and it will actually work. This works all the time. I do this all the time. You have to force yourself to, it doesn't matter. Anything that could go on the human physical level, you got to have the mastery over yourself and even your physical existence to force yourself to be wise and live wisely in varying degrees. Okay, so what I'm saying is, like, think about this. With all the options you have all the time in life, right? You always have to choose the wisest option, because the consequences of your actions, either negative or positive, are being determined by the actions you take right now. So that's the thing about having self-discipline and prudence. Because listen, it's like you're throwing a chip in this way, and that's what comes out. It's like you're putting something in the oven, and based on for how long you put it in the oven, it's going to be perfect or it's going to be ruined. But it's your call. So you have to make the wisest calls. And so the thing is, what I'm saying is that at a certain point of gnosis or knowledge, you really know, and you cannot be ignorant, and you cannot be slacking, and you cannot be foolish. The only danger that exists, the interesting thing is this, listen, it's the truth, is that the only danger that exists, and actually the root cause of any problem, anything that's bad, evil, or wrong with anything to do with the world, the universe, whether earth, human life activity, the environment, etc. The entire and complete and total simple root of the problem, or of anything whatsoever that's problematic, right? Contrary to the law of life and just peace and life and health and whatever, healthy, creation, healthy universe, whatever you call it, is only basically something that can be classified as foolishness by humans. That's it. But see, this is not even as simple as that. See, there are times when the wisest person can be compelled to make a foolish decision. But the person who's a master of their life and destiny, has the self-discipline at that moment to neutrally observe themselves, realize what's going on, and really force themselves to be still, not to say that, not to do that, don't answer to that, go the other way, walk this way, avoid that, escape to here, take this positive route of action, do this wise thing, don't do that. I know it's difficult, yet go this way, go the wise way, right? And in that moment, what you're actually doing is you're mastering. At that point, you're actually mastering your life and your destiny, because it's right now. The thing about the destiny is that it's right now. See, even if I mass up millions and millions, billions, whatever, goes on and on and on and on, right? When am I going to enjoy that? You're only going to enjoy your life right now. And the state that it is in right now is the immediate result of the actions and what goes on and what you're producing. So every human is actually either knowingly or unknowingly, and hopefully knowingly, determining their destiny and their fate and their future right now. And even the state that everything is in right now is because of how you're making it. So you have to have insight into this system and know that life is cyclical and how to live in harmony with the cycles of life so you can live a very good life, and that can go on permanently. And it does. It actually does. That's the interesting thing. I've had adventures happen that I never would have expected. Yet the thing is that you got to have this knowledge and this clear wisdom and the ability to see these things. Because a lot of people, they live sort of intuitively in tune with like the cycles of life to a certain degree, very, very intuitively, but not clearly cognizantly and like really seeing this. Like you're looking at your watch, you're benefiting from it telling you what time it is, yet this is like looking at your watch and looking at the back of it and looking at the working mechanisms and the gears and clearly comprehending basically to a maximum degree on an ongoing basis exactly how it works and why it works how it does. And then, so like, yeah, it's like a person watching a movie and a person watching a movie knowing exactly how the film projector works. It's making the movie and then making it a certain way. That could be an example too. Yet, think about this. You cannot fool yourself, all right? You have to be, and this is the thing, see, you'll learn this because, hey, if I know, it's almost like if I know how to do good, I have to do good. Because you know. So there's no way out of, it's like there's no reverting to foolishness when you've become wise or been given divine wisdom. You can't revert to foolishness because you can't fool yourself. You know better. So in other words, you got to have discipline in life where, like, for example, there's things that have to be taken care of. Well, there's times of the day when these things should be taken care of. So then it doesn't matter. Hopefully the day before you made a wise decision so that you can get up and do these things when you have to, right? But if you didn't, you still have to force yourself to get up and do these things at this time. And what are we looking at here? We're looking at time frames of about 3 hours and 25 minutes. So that's the only thing. It's like maybe the hardest thing that could happen in life will pass within 3 hours. It's like it's even easier than that. In fact, all of life can be lived perfectly so that it's good. I'm just saying that there's a little bit of responsibility when you're mastering your life and your destiny so that you really make it good because you're the one making it with divine aid and assistance and guidance, of course, right?